On this episode of the Ocean Cruisers podcast, I'm having a chat with the founder of the 59 North Sailing School and fellow podcaster, Andy Schell. Andy, with his partner Mia, started 59 North with a Swan 48 called Eastbourne in 2015 and have since added numerous boats to their fleet, most recently a fully refitted FAR 65 named Falcon. 59 North is the premier offshore sailing school, offering hardcore sail training for people wanting to experience crossing oceans. Andy also set up the sailing podcast On the Wind that has hosted some of the world's most accomplished sailors and ocean navigators. If you'd like to learn more about 59 North and sign up to take part in an ocean crossing, visit 59-north.com and also check out Andy's podcast named On the Wind. The cabins for the 2025 Odyssey Sailing Festival BVI are now available for sale for the week starting the 1st of April. The Odyssey Sailing Festival is a week-long party on a fleet of incredible catamarans with a group of legendary skippers at the helms. We do regattas, beach parties, raft-ups and basically experience everything the cruising life has to offer. This is the third festival we will have done and the second time we will be hosting the festival in the BVI with Navigare. For the 2025 Odyssey Sailing Festival, the skippers are Dan and Kika, Kiana Weltzien, Dustin Reynolds, Glenn Shephard, Lauren Landers, Erik and Warren, Raff and Sasch, Erik the Viking, Holly Martin, Iain and Brioni and Laura Dekker. If you'd like to book a cabin or a berth, visit theoceancruisers.com/odyssey for more information or email me, andy@theoceancruisers.com directly to book. Hopefully see you there, and for now, to the podcast with Andy Schell.
Weird, mate. It's just that's like, do you fit into a box type of weird, or are you just a nutter? I think that's all. There's the only difference to it. All right, now we'll kick it off. I'll tell you what would be a great place to start, just introducing 59 North. I'm pretty sure everybody who listens to my podcast or might watch it knows your business and knows your podcast also. But yeah, just give us a brief synopsis, mate, on like what it is you're doing with 59 North.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, we take paying crew on long ocean passages. So we've got two boats. We have a Swan 48 that's based in Norway, and we have the FAR 65, which as we speak, is at sea on the way to Plymouth, England from Sweden. Nice. And we take, 8 people on Falcon on the big boat, and we take 5 people on Eastbourne, and we're planned really far in advance. So we have our calendar booked or published 2 years out. So we know where we're going to be all of next year and all of 2026. And then people can go on the website, pick one of the trips and sign on to sail with us as crew. We call them crew and not passengers. There's a whole legal thing with crew and passengers, which I'll go into. I'll nerd out if you want to, but it's pretty boring. But they actually
reliability.
They actually sail the boat. So I always joke that if I'm skippering Falcon, I have the softest hands in the crew because I never pull any lines. So the crew do all the work. They sail the boat, and we as the skipper and the mate sort of coach them through that. And that's the main aspect of the business. And of course, I've got the podcast On the Wind. We've got an online membership site called the Quarterdeck, which we call it Deep Dives on the Art of Seamanship. So it's like a membership platform where people can learn about seamanship and talk to each other. There's 400 members on there now, I think. So we got a lot of stuff going on, but it's all super fun. I mean, the joke is that all I ever wanted to do was figure out how to get paid to sail, and that's 59 North is the answer to that, basically.
Yeah. Well, not only have you done that, and we spoke about it on your podcast the other day, you've taken it a step further and you've figured out how to pay other people to sail as well. You've become a job creator in the sailing industry through your own business, which is amazing.
That was an accident, and the reason I say that is I started the business pretty selfishly. It's how can I get paid to sail? And the first spreadsheet, this first business plan was what is the least amount of trips I have to do on Eastbourne when we were looking to buy the boat. Okay, we have a 48-foot boat. We can take 4 people. Originally, it was Mia and me. What is the least number of trips we need to run at a given price per person to make $70,000 a year profit? Because that 70, I had read
same for me actually, same number as well.
Well, I had read somewhere that above $70,000, your happiness increases up to 70. Now this was 10, 12 years ago, so I'm sure that number's changed. But your happiness increases with more money, but only to a point. It tails off after $70,000. It tails off dramatically. I was all right, that's cool. Let's go with that number. And then it's like, what's the least amount of trips we need to do that? And that was the first iteration of the business. But what I discovered was like two things. A, that's not that satisfying to just like do it for myself. It was extremely satisfying. But what I found was, yes, I was getting paid to sail, but what I enjoyed most about that was actually taking other people and showing them the high seas, like sharing that experience through them. And then once we decided to try to have kids, we knew we had to grow the business somewhat because we couldn't sail together anymore. And that's when we got the second boat and went. I mean, I've told that story a million times on other podcasts, but like that was the gist. We needed to grow the business enough so that we could decide when we want to sail and take turns sailing. And that's how the job creation for other people came about. And that aspect of it, I actually get more satisfaction out of than anything else. It's no longer a selfish business for me in that sense. It's like, I say that we're in the business of fulfilling people's dreams. So the people that pay to sail with us, the customers, they have a dream to cross an ocean and they don't have the means to do it on their own or with friends, or they don't have family to sail. So they get to do it with us. So that's like one dream fulfilled. I've got my own selfish dreams. I want to sail and do all these cool things. Okay, that's fulfilling my own dreams. And then the people that want to work in this line of work, I'm also creating jobs for them and allowing them to fulfill their dream of getting paid to sail. So like that's very, very, very satisfying that now I can fulfill that on 3 separate legs, not just for myself. And that's like super unexpectedly satisfying, I should say.
Yeah, definitely, mate. I think the thing is, like, when you set up a business, obviously the initial goal is like you need to survive and feed your family. So like, what do you need to do? And it was exactly the same number for me that it was for you when you were setting up with the festival. I've worked really hard, in previous years in like a different industry. And I realized like the more money you earn, it basically equates to the more bullshit you have to deal with, because it doesn't just sit in the bank. You put it into stuff, and then that stuff generally gives you a headache. Like you got properties, you got cars, you got investments, then you got accountants calling you and lawyers calling you, and like the council's chasing after you for taxes, and it's like it's pretty annoying. So yeah, I think the conclusion you came to there is pretty fair. It gets more expensive when you have loads of kids, but yeah, that's pretty sensible. But yeah, you did it really well. I mean, you took it to the point where it worked for you. Then you scaled it, and I think once you've started scaling it and bringing on more people, is there any plans in the future to take it a step further and have more boats in like more varied locations, or like further east or stuff like that, or maybe do some southern latitude sailing? So I know a lot of what you do now with the boats is in the north.
Man, so everything's been in the Atlantic so far. Falcon's headed to the Pacific and to the South Pacific next year for the next 2 years, actually. Yeah, so we're taking Falcon. There's one more trip this season. We end the season in Portugal. Then we go across the Atlantic and straight to the Panama Canal. And then we'll be in the Pacific till the end of 2026. So nice. That's new. But like, and we've sailed, I think, in the Atlantic between both boats. And we had a Swan 59 for a while that we sold when we got Falcon. But all 3 boats together have sailed over 135,000 miles in 10 years, which is a lot of miles in the Atlantic.
10 years.
Yeah. Wow. So that's pretty cool. But so we're going to the Pacific next year. To answer your question, there's been a lot of both internal and external pressure to build the business, to keep expanding the business.
Yeah.
Self-inflicted. I put pressure on myself as well because I can't help myself. I really like this. But I'm really, 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 really working on trying to hold off that for at least a while. So I'll never say never, but at the same time, the last 5 years have been really stressful for me and my mental health. And I'm only just now kind of coming out of that. And part of the reason that's eased off a bit is, we've got Falcon built. We've figured out how to pay for it. We have, I think there's 7 people now that actually own 59 North. It's not just Mia and I anymore, even on the ownership side. We still own 60% of it, but we had to take in a bunch of loans and some external investors to build Falcon. Falcon cost us over $1 million to build. So
that was one of the questions I was going to ask, actually. How much did it cost to refit? Because you did a lot of work on that. That was a major operation. I
say the word build because it was a build. I mean, we didn't build the hull, but we tore that thing apart
from
and
the shell beyond,
rebuilt
he completely redid it.
Yeah. So that's why it's way more than just a refit. I'll come back to that. Happy to talk about that. But basically, to answer your question, like I've got a lot of ideas. So one idea is to, we had signed up for OGR a couple of years ago when we had Ice Bear, this Southern Ocean around the world, and we had that sold. We had people that wanted to do it. But like having followed the last OGR, Don McIntyre, who runs it, has a reputation of being kind of a loose cannon. And I really like Don. I respect his ideas. But what irked me in following the last event was how the rules changed kind of depending on the circumstances. And I get it. He's just trying to keep boats in the race. But like the thing that really irritated us, because we're trying to create a 50-50 male-female split, both in our customers and in our staff. And we've done a lot to do that. And we guarantee that there's going to be 2 women on every single crew on the customer side. And we try to have a mixed staff as well. And Don had this requirement that all the boats in the OGR had a minimum of 1 female crew. Great. Awesome. But then one of the boats did the first leg. They get to Cape Town, and the culture that I'm hypothesizing here, but like for whatever reason, the one woman that was on that crew was like, fuck this, and left. And they applied.
How many men was that? What was the ratio? Like she was a singular woman, 3 or 4 men?
No, they probably had 10 guys. It was probably a 12-person crew. I don't know all the details to this, but the point is Don changed the rules and they got dispensation to continue the race with no women on board when a big part of his mission was to try to. So it's like, come on, man. So anyway, I'm still interested in the OGR. I like the concept. We're probably not going to do it because it's a little too restrictive for the business, but there's nothing stopping us from doing our own Southern Ocean circumnavigation. So like I have this sort of plan mapped out where maybe we would take Falcon or a third boat around the world via the Southern Ocean in 7 legs instead of 4. And I've got this all sketched out. It would take 11 months. You get, one of my big bucket list dreams that I still haven't fulfilled is doing the round Cape Horn passage. So like New Zealand to Brazil around the Horn. I really want to do that one day. So this would like tick that off. And nobody else, I'm giving this away now. Nobody else does this. Like the Clipper race does some Southern Ocean sailing, but that's racing. I'm not that interested in racing. So like that's one idea of expansion or just doing something a little differently that, in a few years. There's, it'd be cool to get another boat just like Falcon and keep one in the Pacific, one in the Atlantic. We've talked about getting a dedicated high latitudes boat and doing more like ski and sail stuff in Greenland, whatever. But all that's on hold. I don't know if it'll ever happen because I'm, trying to transition more into being a dad than a business person and kind of like, when is enough?
Yeah.
Like I make enough money now. We do all this stuff. The business is going good. Scaling this is not really, you can't really scale it in the same way you can scale like a tech company because like for every additional customer, there's an additional cost versus like you have a tech website, every additional user, there's no additional costs. So that's like infinitely scalable. This isn't. This is like really expensive to buy and build these boats and pay staff and all the rest of that stuff. So long story short, I'm just kind of going to see where this goes over the next couple of years and nothing new. We're trying to avoid new ideas and just do what we do, focus on doing what we do really well and try to make it more efficient now. How will the business actually make money? Like on paper, it should make money and, hopefully it will, but like, I won't know that until the end of this year at the earliest because we've been paying off debts to get Falcon ready. So I don't even know if it makes money yet. I got to actually, it does in theory, but we actually have to do it now. We have to see, can we, what we've budgeted for maintenance, is that enough? Are we going to have any accidents that, not accidents with people, but like, is the boom going to break in half and I got to buy a new stump like that? Like, I don't know. So we need to give this a few years to see if it actually works. That's where we're at.
And I mean, on a boat the size of Falcon as well, like with the type of rig it's got and the equipment it's got, I mean, even replacing a winch on that thing would be an absolute fortune. So like,
well, you don't even know the half of it. I mean, the grinding pedestal that Falcon has, it's a central grinding pedestal that operates the 2 Lumar 88 primaries. Yeah. Once you get up to stuff that big, it's all custom. So like to get a new pedestal from Harkin, it's like $100,000. Like
holy
ridiculous
crap.
amount of money. Yeah. like really, really stupid amount of money stuff. So it's like, yeah, don't break the boat. We have two rules that we tell our skippers. Rule 1, don't break the people. Rule 1A, don't break the boat. And like, if you can do those 2 things, like the rest follows.
Job security. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's got to be such a difficult business to like set up, like you've just explained, getting the investment, getting these boats actually ready, because, you know, I've got a bit of experience refitting boats, but it is production boats for, you know, nice weather sailing. You know, I don't cross oceans at, you know, promiscuous times of the year as like some of your boats do. But to get those ready and then to actually maintain them, not only to maintain them, but to maintain them in parts of the world where, you know, you just know, you know, if the mast snaps, if something happens to a sail, like what do you do when you're in South America or you're in, you know, like Greenland or something like that? It's got to be so daunting. Have you got all that set up? Like, you know, you've got your routes planned. Have you got sail makers, riggers, fiberglass people like ready at all these locations if they're needed?
I mean, I know that. So we've gotten to know the Atlantic really well. So our sort of places we go, Antigua has become a hub for us in the Caribbean. We know people in Bermuda. We know people in the Azores. We know people in these Atlantic places. So that's been okay. But also, to back up for a second, our biggest challenge is actually preventing all that stuff from happening in the first place. It's why we spent $1 million to build Falcon, why we spent $150,000 doing Eastbjorn's second refit last year, because we can't afford to have that. We cannot afford breakdowns, not even the money, just like we have 5 days between every trip. So like you're not going to fix a mainsail in 5 days. You're not going to fix a broken boom in 5 days. Like as soon as that happens, you're kind of screwed. The whole rest of the season follows. So what we've done to sort of try and prevent that is outfit the boats and keep them extremely well maintained and have really good skippers and mates that know how to keep from breaking stuff. I mean, people want to hear sea stories, but like those kind of sea stories, we can't afford to have them. Like our sea stories are like, we left this one place, we had some really good sailing, and then we got to where we were going and everything was great. Like that's how it needs to go.
You want it.
Yeah. So we've had to do this preventatively. I mean, I talk about seamanship being about anticipating and then adapting. So like we have to anticipate all this stuff, and we set it up right in the first place. So that's challenge number one. As we've evolved the calendar, we've created fuses in the system in places we know there's going to be services. So we'll do like 4 trips in a row with 5 days in between them. Then we'll have a 3 or 4 week break. And if all goes well in those 4 trips, that 3 to 4 weeks is for routine maintenance, servicing winches, servicing the water maker, servicing the engine, keeping all this stuff in good shape. And if we have a bigger problem, that gives us enough time to fix it and catch up with the schedule so we don't delay the whole rest of the year. So like in a typical year, if Falcon does 12 trips, she'll have 3 sort of 4-trip mini seasons with a break in between. Then we have a 2 to 3 month downtime at the end of the season where we do, like right now, actually, Falcon's on the way to Plymouth. She's having the rig pulled out. So we have 3 weeks to redo the rod rigging. So like rod rigging, it's a 30,000 mile service interval where you have to take it apart and put it back together and rehead the rods that need reheading. That's 30,000 miles. Well, for most boats,
not a lot for you because you're doing that quite regularly.
Most sailors, that's the life they'll own the boat. They'll never get to that. For us, it's every 2 years. So like we did 30,000 miles in 2 years on Falcon. So that means rig's got to come out. All the rods got to come apart. That rig is so big, it's not stuff we can do on our own. Like there's a table that shows all the tensions for every piece of the rig. It's really complicated. So that's got to come out, get redone. So like Adam, our bosun, we also have a full-time guy who takes care of both boats, Adam Brown. Shout out to Adam. He's our bosun. He's in charge of the maintenance and all the maintenance schedules.
Does he travel on the boat or do you ship him out when he's needed?
Both. He's also qualified as a first mate. So he does, occasionally we'll do a trip on the boat that like to then do a maintenance period, and then he'll fly out and do stuff. And then he also manages, like the skippers and mates are also responsible for maintenance when they're in the field. So he manages their projects and makes sure that they've got parts and knowledge that they need. If he's not actually on the boat, he can help them from afar.
Right.
So, but anyway, for like the last, once we decided we had to do this re-rig project in Plymouth, Adam's been coordinating with Allspars, the company that built the rig in the first place, to make sure that they've got all the parts in stock, that they've got everything they need to do what we need to do. So as soon as Falcon hits Plymouth and the crew leave, bam, that rig is out and they start working on it right away. Because 3 weeks is 3 weeks, but like not a lot of time if people got to start ordering parts. So we're trying to be prepared for all that stuff. Okay, make sure that they've got everything in stock on site, ready to go.
Yeah. And if they don't, where can you get it shipped in? Like on a day or 2 days notice kind of thing.
Well, and that's why we're doing these big jobs in England and places that have all that
Yeah, it's
infrastructure
easy
there.
access.
Likewise, like next year, our off season is going to be in San Francisco. Tons of yachting infrastructure there. My job now in the interim is to find all the right people, because like we don't know people in the Pacific. So figuring that out, where, like, okay, if we have a problem in Tahiti, who do I call? Like, I don't know that. I know who I'd call in the Azores. I don't know who to call in Tahiti. So that's part of my job, to make the schedule and figure out all these places where we can get stuff. The other thing that makes it easier than most like family cruisers is we always have people flying out to the boat, like with the crew. So,
So they can bring bits as well.
Exactly. Everybody, and most people come from the States. So like, it's easy to get stuff out to them, and to fly it out to the boat, because they're going anyway. So that's, on small stuff, but that, it doesn't help if we break the spinnaker pole in half.
Yeah, they're expensive. I learned that last year.
Yeah.
Stuff is so much cheaper in the States. I'm doing a little mini refit, a second one in winter, like keel bolts changing, copper coats, a few new electrical pieces, a few bits on the rig. Some of the electrical components I've been buying, they're literally half price in America than they are in Europe. It's insane.
Yeah. Well, also the dollar is pretty strong right now, so that doesn't help the prices in Europe.
Yeah, true. But so yeah, having people, I've got a guy who's coming to the festival, my friend called Ed, and he's bringing 3 things for me, and he's saving me $900 just by bringing me a box with 3 items in.
Yeah, there you go.
So it's worth it. Yeah, it's well worth it. I suppose once you've got these extra routes sorted, like, okay, if you do want to, take it to the next stage, and like you're going to be doing a bit more of the Pacific, then having a boat permanently based there and adding one to the fleet back in Europe, I suppose would be like pretty easy for you at that point, because you've got experience doing it on 3 boats now.
That's the temptation. That's why it is tempting to do this, because on one sense, it's not scalable in like the financial sense. You still got to have the investment costs and everything.
Yeah.
But from an efficiency standpoint, you can share resources, especially if we had an identical boat to Falcon, because now you can share resources, you can share information. So for sure, it's a little bit more efficient there. But like, I'm not ready to do that yet. It's not the right time.
Yeah, and it needs to be something that you're actually excited about as well, because like it's such a massive task. How much was the boat? Did you buy the boat as a shell, or was the boat somewhat seaworthy and then you opted for the mega refit?
No, so I knew Falcon, I knew the boat existed, and it had existed even when we got Ice Bear back in 2019. It had been for sale even then, and I knew about it, but I knew that it wasn't going to fit the image of what we were trying to provide in the state it was in. It was fully commissioned, like had been sailing at UKSA in England, and sales were like, it was saleable. In fact, we did sail it when we first bought it, but it was a stripped out sail training former race boat. It had a blue plywood cabin sole. It had 14 bunks. It had no main salon. It had no proper galley. It wasn't the product that we were trying to deliver. So we ended up getting the Swan 59, because that's like a much nicer, more comfortable cruising boat. Turned out that wasn't the right boat for a lot of other reasons, but I didn't have the money back then to build out this boat into what my vision was, and I knew I didn't want to try to sell it in the state it was in now, because it wasn't what we do. It was a race boat.
Yeah.
So a lot of things happened in the interim, and around the same time we dropped out of OGR, we had a crew member who had sailed with me from Stockholm to England, who was a finance guy, and he's made kind of an offhand comment as he was leaving the boat in England. He lived in England. He's like, "Hey, I've followed you guys for a long time. If you ever want to do something cool, I've invested my own money in some of my friends' businesses in the past. I'd be interested in helping you guys out." And I was like,
nice.
Well, now that you mention it, check out this boat that's over here in Leamington. And we just started brainstorming. It was in
Leamington, yeah.
It was in Leamington. I was like, would you actually do this? He's like, yeah, I mean it. I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. So like, that's what kind of started this process. And it went double what we thought it was going to cost in the first place. But thankfully, we figured it out. And to this day, all the financing that we've gotten from for the business, we had to take a loan to buy Ice Bear. Every single bit of money that's come in, whether through loans or investment, all started from people that had sailed with us, customers that wanted to support what we were doing, and have offered us very favorable loan terms, or investment money for a percentage of the business. And like this guy, and I won't use his name on here, but he's it's the last couple of years having him on the team as an owner. I've been in like business school because that's what he does. He's like a real I kind of think I know what I'm doing on a small scale, but like it's been really, really cool learning about all the financial stuff and all this stuff. And like that's just been a nice thing to have in addition to his investment money and to let us do this in the first place. So so that's been really, really cool. And the guy that gave us a loan for Ice Bear, when we sold Ice Bear, instead of him getting paid back, he just took the money that we still owed him and said, transfer it to Falcon and just let it ride. So like the money we got to sell Ice Bear went towards the Falcon refit, and we kept it as a loan. So, it'll be another, I think it's going to be another 12 years till Falcon's even paid off with the loans we have on her. But like it makes it work. And we couldn't do what we do without doing that.
Yeah. I mean, that's not too bad, mate, considering like the price of what that boat probably stands at. She's got to be like $1.5 million or 2 million somewhere in that region. 10 years is pretty good.
You asked what we paid. That's what this question started. You asked what we paid for the boat. We paid $80,000 for the boat. We effectively got the boat for free because it was sat there for 3 years in the boatyard. Who's going to buy it? The only people that would have bought it is if you had like fundraising to do something with it, or we're going to do a business. So like, because it needed a huge refit.
Needed so much money in it.
So we paid 80 grand for it. We launched it in January in Lymington, sailed it around. I actually had to have the boatyard clean it. It was at Berthen in Lymington. I had to have them clean it because there was like water in the bilges. The hull was like green with mold. It was disgusting. So they cleaned it. We launched it. A bunch of our staff came over. We sailed it around the Isle of Wight in January to Gosport, where we had lined up the boatyard to do the work. And when we went to hoist the mainsail, I'm not kidding, like 3,000 dead flies fell out of the mainsail and all over the deck. It was disgusting. And then as soon as we got into the dock at Gosport, we immediately started dismantling the boat. The rig came out. She went into a shed. The rudder came off. Every single piece of deck hardware came off. Everything inside the boat came out. We ripped out the old galley. We ripped out 4 of the bunks that we were going to rebuild. I'd been working with Bob Perry, the yacht designer, to redesign the interior.
Oh, very cool.
And we basically, it took a couple months to gut it and then slowly put it back together. So like the pieces we saved, all the winches, the mast, the boom, the keel, the rudder, the big stuff was saved and refurbished and put back on. But like all the sail hardware, the track on the mainsail, the tracks on deck, the blocks, everything down below, every single through hull, every single wire, plumbing, electrical system, every single system was from scratch. And it was a dream project. I got to design everything. It was super fun. And it took like almost a year, and it was a hell of a project.
Yeah, I mean, to take a boat that's got it's obviously so well designed anyway, and it's made for crossing oceans at high speed, and then like turn it into somewhat of a cruising boat rather than just a race boat is like really exciting thing. I remember when you announced it on Instagram, you were like, "Oh, we've got this new boat," and you put it. I was like, Jesus, that is a boat. And then I was watching some of the clips of it being stripped out, and I was like, oh my gosh, that is insane. That is a massive project. But it's turned out pretty good.
It's the only thing I would have changed is I would have put a bigger water maker on, because in the interest of like share, we have a same one we have on Eastbjorn, because the logic was, all right, we can share parts and knowledge, whatever, but we have so much battery capacity on Falcon that I could have put one. So we have a Spectra Cape Horn. Super simple, manual. It makes like 40 liters an hour, 10 gallons an hour, which is enough, plenty for a few people. We had 12 people on the boat, 10 people on the boat. So like if we're, every night we run it when we do dishes and stuff, but you're running it quite often to refill the tanks. Whereas I could have put one that made 400 liters an hour easily. But anyway, other than that, I'm thrilled with the boat. We got exactly what we wanted.
Mate, I've on my boat, it came with that wasn't commissioned, and I didn't bother when I first put it in the water. It was an Osmo C. It was like 120 liters an hour, a DC powered one. Anyway, I flicked it on like at the start of this year, and it was just it sounded like there's a bomb raid going on the boat, everything was just blah, 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 blah. It was like, okay, this isn't healthy. Turned it off. But I've just been looking at the Rain Man units. They do like modular. They do these portable ones as well, but they do modular ones. Man, like the 110 litre AC version, which doesn't use that much energy, way less than some of the old water makers. Like $4,000, like $5,000. Like they've really come down in price.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to, back in the day, I was like very anti-water maker just because I was anti-systems in general. Like the simpler the boat, the easier to maintain.
Yeah.
Once we put one on Eastbjorn and I started, like, I mean, it's amazing. It just makes you, keeps you independent. You never have to go to the dock. If you're out cruising, you never go to the dock. Once every few months to fill up diesel, but like, it's so nice. I almost consider it, if you're living aboard, it's like an essential piece of kit. If you're gonna, if you don't want to spend all your time in marinas anyway.
Yeah. Well, like we this year we've been in Greece, and getting water in Greece is easy. You go to a quay wall for like €10, and then you can just fill up all your water. Whereas last year we crossed the Mediterranean, so we spent time in Italy, Balearics, and Spain. And high season, I was looking at like $200 a night to put my boat into a marina just to get water. I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
But what we're doing this year is we've got 1,000 litre water capacity, and we've just got 400 litres of diesel. So we're getting the water maker installed. I'm knocking off one of those water tanks and turning it into a second diesel tank. And I'll just turn on the water maker like once a day. So, we'll have like 6 days worth of diesel should we ever need it, and unlimited water. So it's amazing. You're completely free.
Yeah, there you go. Can't make diesel, but you can make water.
Yeah. So, mate, just your story. You obviously sound like an American man. I think you're from there, but you ended up in Sweden, which is a pretty dramatic cultural shift from America. How did you end up over there? Was that by choice or force?
So I always say it was by choice, but I say that like Swedes on the surface, where it's both, Western democratic culture, mostly white, share the same pop culture references, movies, music. In Sweden, unlike in Germany, for example, they don't dub movies, it's subtitled. So like everybody speaks English here. So on superficially, other than that, Swedes are much nicer looking than Americans. Pretty similar cultures. Pretty similar cultures. But like once you spend the more time I spend here, fundamentally, it is very, very, very different. I mean, there is a reason that Sweden is a successful socialist country politically.
For a long time as well. It's worked for a long time.
And that Bernie Sanders will never get anywhere in America with his ideas, which are effectively the same thing they do here in Sweden. Because like on an individual level, Swedes are they're just group based. Like they are we live in the countryside, and like I have a hard time with this because Americans are very much like, rugged individualism and do everything yourself, and sort of what's the political word where you don't want anybody to tell you what you do, like independent. There's a political word for that. I'll think of it anyway. And I'm like that kind of because I'm American. So like an example here is if I need a tool in the US, you'd just go buy it. But here it's like expected that you ask the neighbor first if you can borrow it. And that's just weird for me. That's hard for me to do, but that's just the culture here. It's like, oh, you need a tool? Ask the neighbor, which makes a lot of sense. But anyway, how I got here, I've always been intrigued with travel. And when I was 18, when I was a kid, my parents took us to the Bahamas and we went cruising as a family for a year. I was like 9. I turned 10 on that trip. And that was my first time abroad. And then didn't really travel abroad again until I was 18, my first year of college. In the summer, I went to Costa Rica and did this like student volunteer program. So it was like 2 weeks of travel, 2 weeks of volunteer work. And I was on my own and like traveling didn't know anybody, like really, really, really enjoyed that. Like, wow, this is super cool. Then I did a semester abroad in Australia in my junior year of college. Same thing, left, didn't know anybody, traveled a bit, made some really great friends and had just a blast. So the travel bug like got me big time. And then when I graduated college, my graduation present for my parents was, they said they'll buy, they knew I wanted to go backpacking before I started like working. So they're like, we'll buy you a ticket to anywhere you want to go in the world. If you want to before you start working. I had a job lined up after that. So I was going to go for 2 months and I went to New Zealand, and like 3 weeks into my 2-month trip in New Zealand, I met Mia and her best friend were traveling together. And long story short, here I am, almost 20 years later, living in Sweden. We basically, it was like, for me, it was like love at first sight. And I knew it immediately. I was like, that I'm going to marry that girl. I was only 22 when we met. I was like, this is happening. And we spent 3-4 weeks together in New Zealand, I think, traveling around and spending a lot of time together. And I remember telling her then, like, hey, like, she hadn't even gone to college yet. She's a year younger than me, but they, Swedes, as most Europeans, travel a lot between high school and college. So she hadn't even started college yet. I had just graduated, and I was like, well, hey, I'll move to Sweden. Like, if that's how this is, where I'll do it. And like less than a year later, I did for the first time. 2007, I moved here. She was in school. We shared an apartment, and just figured it out from there. Never really moved here permanently in 2017, but had been coming here since 2007.
Amazing. That's such a nice story. So that, I mean, that you were pretty young at that point. That was a long time ago. When did the sailing bug really kick in? When did you start wanting to own boats and travel on boats?
So that was like, I've sailed my whole life, but it never occurred to me that I could make a career out of it until I was in college. Because when I majored in tourism management, back to the travel thing, and that was by itself was accidental, because I actually originally went to college for professional golf management. I was going to be like a teaching golf pro.
Do a degree in that.
You can get, so there's a couple programs in the US where you get some sort of business adjacent degree, and the university
specific to golf.
Well, they partner with the PGA of America. And you can do this every summer. You have to do an internship, and there's this whole secondary curriculum in addition to the college work that lets you become like a club pro, like a teaching pro. And there's, at the time, there was like 12 universities in the US that had this program. So that's what I went for. But I just got burned out on golf. I love golf now more than ever, but I don't work. It's my favorite hobby, but I don't think I could work with it. Although I have said, if the sailing business fails, I might go back to that. But anyway, because I was in this golf program, I wound up majoring in like commercial tourism. That's what the golf program was under. And part of to graduate, you had to do a 12-credit internship in the field. And by then I'd given up on the golf thing. So I was like, oh, it would be cool to do something in sailing, because that's like combines two of my passions, travel and I'd grown up sailing. So I had two choices. One, I had applied to work on a schooner in Annapolis doing day sail tourist stuff, the Woodwind, which is where I ended up going. But I'd also applied. I have also applied at the same time to do a program teaching sailing in Japan. And it was working. It would have been working for the Navy, actually. They have, naval bases in Japan, and they have these. It was called MWR, Morale, Welfare, and Recreation, where they have civilians running these recreational programs for the people that live on the base in the military. And I got offered the job, and there was 3 placements in Japan, and I was like first in line to choose. So I had my pick. Where do you want to go? And I was like, oh man, this sounds super cool. But like, I also applied for Woodwind. I want to see, like, maybe I want to go there. I was like, how long do I have to decide? And the military woman's like, we'll give you 24 hours. I was like, fuck. So, I was like, shit. So I called Captain Jen at the Woodwind, who I hadn't met yet. I just applied. I had an interview lined up like the week after. And I was like, so, hey, like, what do you think my chances of getting this internship are? She's like, well, I need to interview you first. And I was like, shit. So I gambled and I said no to Japan, did my interview at Woodwind, and started working there. And that's the first time where I was introduced to, like, oh, I could maybe make a career out of this. Like, there were people there that were full-time captains, and Jen ran a business that her parents set up, and they had 2 boats. And actually, that experience now, because my first internship summer there was basically 5 days a week on the boat as a deckhand, 4 days a week as a boat on the deckhand, and then 1 day a week working in the business office and learning the business. Nice. And I mean, it's very similar to what we do now. It was a small family business that was started from scratch and ran a staff of 10 to 12 people and 2 boats. And that's literally what we do now. So I learned so much that year. And that was the job then. They offered me a full-time job after that. And I said, cool, but I want to travel first. And their business is year round, but the boats only sail seasonally. So like April to November. So in the wintertime, when I got back from New Zealand, started working in the business office, which was great in the wintertime. I was like helping doing marketing stuff and doing bookings for private trips and stuff. So that was great in February and March. And then April rolls around and they launch the boats. And all my friends that I had made the last summer are now out sailing every day. And I'm sitting in the office. I still did 1 day a week on the boat, but 4 days a week I was in the office answering the phone. I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, this sucks. I was like, no thanks. And I had met Mia at that time. She was still traveling. She came to the US later that summer then. But like very soon into that, I was like, can I please have my old job back? Like, I had a full-time salary. I had health insurance. Like, it was like a real job. And I was like, fuck this. And I think by June, I was back on the boat 4 days a week and 1 day a week in the office, back to like $12 an hour, just whatever, making tips and stuff. So, but I was happier. And then that just kind of, that led to how can I figure out how to go ocean sailing? That was the next thing. Cause we were doing 2-hour day sails on woodwind. Yeah. And one of my friends, one of the other deckhands on the boat, this guy, Pete, he gave me a book by John Kretschmer, The Flirting with Mermaids, about like all the boat deliveries and stuff he did. I was like, oh, wait a minute. This is what I want to do. This is fucking cool. So all I wanted to do was be a yacht delivery captain and like do all that. That would talk about like travel and adventure and sailing, combining all these things. So I did a couple trips as a deckhand for free. First trip was from Charleston to BVI. Loved it. I was like, okay, I got to do more of this. Got my captain's license, started getting work delivering boats for other people, got involved with the cruising rallies and started helping manage those events and stuff. And then after a while, it was like, and it was really cool because Mia was doing her school and she was doing a lot of school remotely online, and she could do the deliveries with me. We both got into it. We bought our own boat. We sailed across the Atlantic in 2011, just the two of us, plus a friend, actually one of the guys I met in New Zealand on that first trip. And it became apparent that it was like, well, this delivery gig is pretty sweet, but like there's zero job security. You never know when your next job's going to be. The boats are pretty shitty. You don't get to pick where you go. And that kind of evolved into, all right, let's buy our own boat and do kind of following what Kretschmer did. He did the yacht delivery thing for a while, then bought his own boat. And that was the real inspiration. And yeah, here we are. Almost what? My first ocean passage was in 2007. So 18 years ago.
You know, it's such a good niche to get involved in as well. Not just from the perspective of like you can set up a business, you can do what you can like, and you can make money. But like one of the most difficult things about getting into cruising or generally just getting boat experience, it's like, first of all, getting on a boat, depending where you are, is sometimes very hard. If you have some ambition to become a full-time cruiser, or, you know, even if you just want to go like weekend sailing and keep your boat in a marina, it's very difficult to get that experience if you don't know people. But the biggest jump is you own a boat. You don't want to do ocean crossings because you have to fork out a fortune, get your boat ready, upgrade your equipment and stuff. But then to be actually able to do it just on a whim whenever you want. So, you know, for somebody who's in that position to be able to just like book a trip with your company and just be like, I want to do an Atlantic crossing, but I don't want to spend 60 grand on my boat. You know, they can just jump on yours and they can tick it off a bucket list, which is pretty cool, because there's not many human beings who've actually done that. Like we talk about it like it's a normal thing because we do it, and you know, you obviously manage it for people, you know, on an annual basis, but it is very rare.
Yeah, well, a couple things. I want to come back to that because you make a good point, and it's a nice little plug for the business. But before that, like, you know, you worked in you worked on oil rigs and stuff, right? Yeah, so like you had a previous career, you saved some money, you had all that stuff, whatever. I never had, I was brought up in an entrepreneurial family, so like I had a good childhood. My dad owned businesses. We were never like wealthy, but we did whatever we wanted to. We had, you know,
he works.
Yeah, and my dad still actually owns one of the restaurants. He's 72 now, and they still manage it. That my grandfather started in 1952. Anyway,
oh, wow.
I came straight out of college. I never had a real job. That only job I ever had that was like salaried, whatever, was that few months for Woodwind. And even then it was like 30 grand a year out of college. So like I never had a job. I never had money. I never had a house. I never had anything to start with. I had people that were willing to help, to give us loans. My dad still has a loan on Falcon from my dad right now to help us build it. But like, so I don't want to say that it was like a, you know, bootstraps thing. We had help to build the business. But if I wanted to do, I was never going to be the guy that was like, I'm going to go work in a corporation and save money and buy my own boat. That was never going to happen. So if I wanted to go sailing, I had to figure out a way to Skip Novak. I interviewed him last week. He calls it like, yeah, he worked his way around the world. He worked working passage. So like for me, it was like, I'm never going to be able to go cruising on the kind of boat that I want to do with the flexibility I want to do unless I go work for a living, and I don't want to do that. So how can I figure out how to fulfill those sailing goals while also like having it pay for itself? Yeah. So that's kind of what we've created here in this way. And it's only recently that we've even been able to like take a salary from the business. And it's not even much. I mean, I make $60,000 a year, which our skippers, our head skippers make more than that. But if the business makes a profit, I'll get some of that profit, but we haven't made a profit yet. So like, but it's afforded me the lifestyle I want to have. I get paid to go sailing on a fucking awesome boat, like 2 awesome boats, and can go when I set the schedule, I set the tone. So like that's been really, really cool. But to go back to what you said about, fulfilling other people's dreams with this, like on the surface, people see there's 2 kinds of people that see what we do. And one kind thinks like, wait a minute, I could just buy a boat and go do this on my own. I'm never going to pay to go sailing. And that people they're never going to sail with us, and they're going to go do it on their own. That's awesome. Actually, most Swedes are like that. We get very few Swedish customers because sailing is so accessible here. Yeah. Boats are cheap. There's easy cruising, and there's sailing clubs everywhere. So like that's not our target market. But then you get other people that are like what you said, where they see, it costs 10 grand to do a transatlantic with us. That's a lot of money. But like you said, this guy, Jim Butler, he's our biggest fan. He's on the boat right now, actually. It's his 12th passage with us. He spent a fortune to sail with us, but he's gotten to sail on cool boats all over the world and with no stress. Like he gets to do it. His family's not interested in sailing. He doesn't have to outfit a boat. He's done way more ocean miles. I was just adding this up the other day. He is the leader of our customers with, it'll be after this trip, over 15,000 miles he's sailed with us. And he meets people. It's just a cool thing. So like, yeah, it maybe looks expensive to spend 10 grand to cross an ocean, but if you're going to do it on your own boat, buy the boat, outfit the boat, find the crew, and then fix the boat after you do it, because stuff's going to break. It's a fortune, mate. It's actually a pretty good bargain. That being said, and I'm this kind of person, there is sailing with us, you're never going to have the same sense of satisfaction that you'll have from crossing an ocean on your own boat as the skipper. That we can't reproduce. We can reproduce the experience of what it's like to sail across an ocean, but you'll never be able to get the satisfaction of doing it on your own boat. So then the third type of person are people that they maybe sail with us once. They want to do it on their own boat. They want to come with us to learn how to do it properly and to like get the experience, see what heavy weather is really like, and then they take that back to their own boat. So it sounds expensive, but like I think most people would say 100% it's worth it. You get your value for money kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't think that's expensive. Like, especially like, okay, I mean, we're obviously just talking about the numbers and what type of investment it is to get a boat like Falcon, refit it so it is, safe, and you can put customers on those boats, and that the boat isn't going to, tip over or shit ain't going to break constantly. Like, taking into account how much it is going to cost to like set up the business, maintain the business, have the network in place, like to ensure that you can, continuity is going to continue to work. 10 grand ain't expensive.
Well, I'm glad you say that, because we have some other competition who I won't name here that charge probably less than half of that, but they don't pay their staff. Most of my staff actually had worked for them previously and will never work for them again, and now work for us. They don't pay their staff very well. The boats aren't very well maintained, and they just have different experiences. But like, from somebody that's never done this type of sailing before and doesn't really know better, they see them and they see us, and it's more or less the same product. And they see, oh, this one's half price, I'm going to go with them. But it's not even remotely the same experience because of how that works. And, I get frustrated trying to compete with that, but then I'm just reminded that, like, look, I don't need to worry about that. We've got people, it's fine. Like, let's just focus on what we do and let's just do it really well. I'm just really competitive. The other thing that irks me is we do everything by the book, and I hate the rules. But when you start, and this goes back to the passenger crew thing, when you start taking money for crew, when you start taking money from people to sail, that makes them a passenger legally. There's no such thing as paying crew. And once you have a passenger on board, you have a duty of care to that person, which is different than if you're just out sailing with a bunch of your friends.
Yeah.
And there's international laws that dictate what that duty of care means. There's an organization called the IMO, the International Maritime Organization. They set the laws for passenger carry. And what we do in that terms is passenger carry, because there's money exchange for sailing. And each maritime country that has signed this treaty agrees to adopt those laws, and they can interpret them a little bit their own way, but that's part of the deal. So you can't get around that.
Yeah.
You can get around it. You can fly under the radar and just ignore it. And a lot of people do that. And in fact, we did that when we started the business. But like, you can't ignore it when you're hiring staff and doing things legitimately. So when it was just Mia and I in our own boat, yeah, we just flew under the radar. We did it, and it was fine. Fake it till you make it kind of thing. But like, once you start having other people, I have to hire staff. Everything has to be by the book. And now it's like we do everything by the book, and it's so fucking frustrating because the book is really annoying. All these, we have to have surveys every year. It's just annoying. But like, it is what it is. And now we're competing against a couple other people that I talked about this with Skip as well. Skip's got the same thing, even to a higher degree, because in Antarctica, there's even more rules because of the high latitude stuff, environmental stuff. So it's just I asked Skip, like, do you resent the people that do this just on a whim, like as cowboys? And he's like, yeah, I do. And I do too. But you just have to remind yourself to focus on what you do, and the rest will, if you do it well enough, the rest will sort itself out. And that's where we're at now. But it still bothers me. And that goes back to what we were talking about last week on the episode with you, is I'm trying to also make the industry better for everyone. To bring, people work in this business, like to raise wages, to make the male-female equality thing more equal, and to do all that. And so this is kind of like one of those sort of things. It's like, come on, guys, like because what happens then too is the rules are made because people do dumb shit and they create rules for those people. The rules aren't made for people that follow the rules like us, that set the standard. So the more things that happen when people don't follow the rules, it's just going to be bad for everyone, because then there's going to be new laws that are more restrictive, and it's going to make it harder to do what we do. So anyway, follow the rules.
It's a good point, mate. I remember I spent, a good chunk of my life in boardrooms and like listening to, some people who knew a lot, and then some people who didn't know much, but they pretended they knew a lot. And like one thing which always used to piss me off is every time I used to go into like I used to go to Amsterdam and stuff to do quarterlies in the UK and all that. It was like, what are the competitors doing? What is the market doing? What are they focused on? And my take was always like, I don't care and I'm not interested. It doesn't matter. I'm going to focus everyone I've got working for me on doing the best job they can do. And if we're doing well and if we're focused, that's fine. I don't care what anyone else is doing. And you have to kind of take that approach, because it's like you said, otherwise you're looking at a race to the bottom instead of a race to the top.
100%.
And that's pointless. You're not going to do anything.
I want it the other way around. I want to do what we do, and I want everybody else to look at what we're doing and copy us. That's what I'm trying to do. They should look. I want to set the standard. I mean, I said this last week with Skip again to bring him up. He's set the gold standard. He's been doing this for 25 years, by the book, commercially, pioneering in the Southern Ocean. He's the gold standard. I want to be like that. I started my career following Kretschmer, and he's still a mentor. I love what he does. I'm still a huge fan. But he never took it beyond just him. It's always just been him on a boat doing stuff, which is really cool. But we decided we weren't going to do that a long time ago. So we kind of pivoted. It's like, all right, we'll use Kretschmer as the example. But then once we got the second boat and started hiring staff, what he didn't apply to us as much. So then it's like, okay, who else is doing that and doing it to the standard that we want to do? Okay, Skip Novak. He's doing it to this standard. Let's look to him for guidance. And he's been a mentor as well. He's been super helpful with setting this up. And how do you make that leap? Because it's very, very different. I mean, my job is very different now than it was when I was just skippering the boat. Now managing all this stuff. And that's the standard we're trying to set. Now we're trying, Skip does the high latitude stuff. Our thing is like long, deep ocean stuff. Where he sets the standard for the Antarctic and the North, I want to set the standard for a business that takes people on ocean crossings. I want it to be us. That's my goal.
Yeah, I think you've achieved that, mate. Like the way that you present the business, the way you market it, the type of people you've had associated with it. I think you've done that, and it does stand out. It definitely stands out as being the number one. in terms
Well,
of
that's
what
cool.
we can
That's
find.
cool to hear from a third party. Thanks.
Yeah, 100%, mate. Right, I'll tell you what, we'll sign off because I know your time constraint. One question I've got for you. You've done a lot in the sailing industry from like a professional perspective. You've obviously put a lot of miles on a lot of different boats. You mentioned Cape Horn before, which is obviously a cool thing. And that's something you'll tick off the list very easily. Like that's not going to be a challenge for you. But is there something that would really excite you? Like, is there something that would really excite you that isn't just a basic, let's round this peninsula, or let's just go around the south of America? But is there something that would super excite you in sailing still?
Man, I don't know. Like, I've said this before, and the Cape Horn thing, that is the thing that excites me. That's not just rounding that peninsula, as you say, but the doubling the horn, the 3,000-mile passage from New Zealand to Brazil nonstop. That's like a 7,000-mile passage, but like a really big long passage like that. I've never done a trip more than 3,000 miles, so that excites me. But that being said, like it doesn't excite me. If it excited me that much, I'd have planned it and done it by now. Like the Svalbard thing was the big one in 2018. We did that, and I gotta be careful how I say this because like I am more satisfied now than at any point in my life before. When I worked on the Woodwind, we sailed circles. We did 2-hour trips on the bay, and all I wanted to do was sail over the horizon. I wanted to do these long ocean passages, and I've accomplished most of the sailing goals I have, and the ones that remain, I don't have that same sort of fire, and not because I don't want to do it, but more that I get a greater sense of satisfaction from the things that I didn't before. Like we have our 34-foot Spica. It's on the wall behind us. That the boat with the black spinnaker there. That's our personal boat, Spica.
Yeah, I've seen your photos of it online. Yeah,
I just day sailing that around the archipelago here. I just have a sense of satisfaction from that type of sailing that I never had before, because A, I've done a bunch, and B, I know I'm going to go back out to Falcon next. I don't sail Falcon again until April. It's September now. We record this. I go back to Falcon, but I get to go back. I fly to the Galapagos. I get to sail across the equator to the Marquesas, like the classic South Pacific trade wind run. That's going to be awesome. Yeah. But at the same time, like, I don't know. I'm satisfied in a way I've never been before in my career. And I don't want to do something just to say I've done it. Like, I'm not interested in the bucket list thing. I've never really had a desire to sail around the world just because it's just like, maybe I will one day by default, but it's not going to be because that was like the goal. Maybe I still want to do a big solo passage. So like I've got a Cape Horn wind vane in my garage that's made for Spica that I haven't installed yet. Cause like maybe one day I want to solo sail that to the Caribbean or something like that. But like, I don't really care that much about that stuff right now. That sounds like, I don't know what that sounds like. It sounds lazy. It sounds boring, whatever, but
very mature answer, actually.
Well, I guess it's, yeah, maybe it's just mature. Yeah. I don't know what excites me is the puzzle of keeping the business going and like, figuring out the crew puzzle. I mean, sounds so stupid, but like I was up till 10 o'clock the other night working on the back end of the database where we keep all the data for skippers and mates and crew and passages and stuff. And I figured out the cool thing is we've saved data since we started, since 2015. So I have every single passage we've ever done logged in this back end database that includes like how many miles the boat sailed, average boat speed, stuff like this. So I did a couple little formulas, and I figured out I wanted to see of the staff, how many miles have the staff sailed, how many trips have the staff sailed, and of the crew, how many have they sailed? So like I made this little crew logbook thing. Talk about things that excite me. This is so nerdy. But like Jim Butler, to bring him up again, he's sailed, it'll be when he gets off in England next week, it'll have been 11 passages and over 15,000 miles. And he signed up for 4 future passages with us. So I was like, oh, that's pretty cool to see. And then we have a couple other crew that have sailed. We have 9 crew that have sailed over 5,000 miles with us over the years. And that's just really cool. And like staff wise, you look at, Mia and I have been doing this for the longest of our staff. I've done, just with 59 North alone, I've done 78 passages for a total of 63,000 miles. And that's just with 59 North. That's not counting all the other boats I sailed prior to this. Mia's done 55 passages for a total of 50,000 miles. So like, what makes me excited is staying up at 10 o'clock at night and fiddling with all this data that we have. Like that's exciting to me right now. It sounds so stupid, but
no, it's good, man. Like, your ambitions change, and obviously you're a father now and stuff, and your ambitions will definitely change once your kid grows up and he's able to like take the helm, and you can take him on little trips and do beach barbecues and all that, and it changes as you develop, doesn't it? All right, man. Let's plug your business in case anybody wants to book a trip like 2 years in advance. What should they do? Should they head to a website, Instagram, Facebook?
Yeah, so we're on all the places. We're 59 North Sailing on Instagram, Facebook. Our website's 59-north.com. The best place to go to see what's available, because we sell out really early as well. If you go to 59-north.com/bunks, that only shows what still has openings. So I know we have openings for the Panama Canal trip. This is a weird one, actually. I thought the Panama Canal thing was like a bucket list thing people really wanted to do. So when we first published that, we decided, all right, well, we got to have some sailing in there as well. So we're starting that trip in Colombia. It's going to be like a 2-day sail from Colombia over to Panama. You'll get to see the San Blas Islands. Then you get to go through the Panama Canal and get off on the other side. So I think it's a really cool trip, but only like 3 people are signed up. This is coming up in, I think, February or March next year. So there's openings for that. So if you want to do the Panama Canal and get a little bit of an ocean sail and see San Blas, it's also one of our less expensive trips for next year. I think it's like $5,000 or something like that.
Nice.
Sign up for that. That's the one I'd recommend. I don't understand why people haven't booked that yet, but there you go. And that's one of the few spots we have open at all next year. And then we've got more openings in 2026. So check all that out.
Brilliant. And then your podcast is called On the Wind. So everyone who's listening to this can just search On the Wind if they don't listen to it already. Then you've got your quarter deck, which is on the 59 North website as well.
That's you can find it on the website. It's also just go to quarterdeck.59-north.com, and I can send you these links and stuff, but that's the online seamanship platform. So yeah, we've got, now that you listed off like this, we've got a lot of stuff going on.
I'll sell you a business for you, mate. Don't worry.
Thanks, man. So for On the Wind though, I have episode number 445 comes out tomorrow as we're recording this, and that's another one with Nigel Calder. So it's been that show is the reason the business is as successful as it is, because most of the customers find us there first, and I still have a blast doing that. I love it. I love doing the podcast.
Well, mate, I've loved doing this one with you. It's great having conversations. I love talking to people in industry as well as just cruisers, because I'm a business person. I always have been, and yeah, it's great to see how people have managed to carve a place in this industry and actually turn it into not only a lifestyle, but a means of which just support the family and support other families as well, which you do. So yeah, good on you, mate. I think business is working really well. You've done a great job, and I look forward to seeing you in Annapolis in a few weeks.
We'll definitely have to do a round 2 in person in Annapolis.
100%, mate. Look forward to that.
Cool.
All right,
Thanks, Andy. Take it easy. See you.